There are moments in all of our lives when there are decisions to make. They're prevalent throughout our lives, but for many of us, there are those moments in young adulthood that we might remember where we felt so overwhelmed by the decision itself, because we knew that whichever pathway we chose, it would have ramifications for our entire life, or so we think at the time. And so that moment in our lives, those moments can fill us with dread, can fill us with anxiety, can fill us with fear. Our minds knowing that a decision to make, it has to be made, and we cannot ignore it, but knowing how to weigh that decision, it's difficult in our lives. And often the anxiety that it brings in us doesn't make it easier. So often we wish we could get an answer. For some of us, we might think of it as divine life, if we could just, if we could just call God on the phone and get an answer. But for others of us, it might take different shapes and forms. We would just like to literally put the decision on someone else, right? But that decision will be a good decision, of course. We just want an answer so that our lives will be made well. An answer. This week, I was finishing a short story called The Answer Man by Stephen King in his latest short story collection, You Like It Darker. And there he introduces us to a young man about the age of 25 back in 1937 who has a difficult decision to make. And he's been thinking about it for a long time. He's thinking about career, he's thinking about marriage, he's thinking about where to locate, where to start this new life as an attorney. And so he goes on a long drive, and as he's driving down this country road, he sees a sign, and he says, "Answer Man 2 miles away." An answer man. When you have a difficult decision to make, we all would like to have an answer man. So he drives up 2 miles up, and there is this dude under a red tent up sitting there ready to give answers. So he stops and he talks to this man, and it's about $25 in 1937 for 5 minutes of questions. Now, it sounds like a small number to us, but this will be like $500 today. So can you imagine being a law school graduate? You need answers, $500. Anyways, I digress. So he's desperate for answers, but he thinks this guy might not be really an answer guy, and they have a conversation together. But pretty quickly, the answer man kind of puts a stop to this because he feels like this very learned individual is already not asking the right questions. He says he's trying to ask questions that he already knows the answer to, and he's not going to have any part of that. If he's serious, he's going to give him the $25. He's going to sit and ask his questions. So after back and forth and almost walking away, he sits with this answer man and pays his $25, and the clock begins. The first set of questions are just him trying to test this guy and see if this guy is for real. Like, what's my mother's name? Who am I trying to marry? Those kind of things. But then he tries to trick the answer man because he's trying to get his questions answered about what he should do. And one of the rules of the answer man is that he never responds to what I should questions. He said should questions are not really that interesting. He said actually that the most difficult questions take time and require some work and sacrifice to answer. he gets some answers that day about life, about vocation. He gets some answers about place. And he walks away pretty sure of himself. Life unfolds for this man. And like in any one of our lives, it unfolds in quite circuitous ways. So it was a blessing. Life was a blessing, but he then encounters the answer man again some years later. And again, it seems like life is going well, but then suddenly life is not so well. And he kind of kicks himself for what's happened. And he's angry about the answer man's answers because he realized that something was wrong. And the answer man should have told him that something was going to go wrong. And so he's disappointed because everything will be going right. And, well, won't give away the end of the story, but let's just say that at the end of the day, the right questions were rooted in a life, in the day-to-day life. The right questions were rooted in being present to that life at each step of the way. The right questions were rooted in the kind of presence in the midst of that life, in the midst of the good things and the bad things, and in the midst of the celebrations and the joys. The right questions were rooted in curiosity at each moment of his life. And if he would just be present to that moment, then he would begin to see life unfolding before him with a certain peace and comfort and joy. Even in the midst of the most tragic moments, the answer to this kind of life is a yes. It's good. The answer to these questions about life lean you into possibility and abundance. So it got me thinking about our lives of faith and the anxieties that we feel each and every day. As I recently shared with you, the anxieties that we feel at those pivotal moments in our lives, maybe it is a graduation from law school or college, or maybe it's a decision, maybe you're thinking about being a parent, for example, and all the anxieties around that and the fears that are there, or maybe the relational components, or our marriages not going like we expected, and we wanting answers, or our new relationship emerging that we did not expect, or maybe the answers are around vocation, right? What am I giving my life to? And I know in my own life, I've lost count at the number of times that I've wanted an answer man for my pastoral life, wondering if this is it. Is this it? I've wondered. And so in all those very moments, Jesus, in the good news, tells us that, he says, do not worry about your life. Do not be anxious. That's Jesus' answer to those difficult moments of our life. Do not be anxious. And part of that non-anxiety is not about everything going okay. We know we've lived life long enough. We know that life doesn't go okay all the time. We know that there'll be heartbreaks. We know there'll be moments of hopelessness and despair. We know that there are going to be moments of fear and anguish. We know in every life there's going to be those moments where we feel so detached and disconnected from our true selves. This non-anxiety, though, is rooted in a certain reality of the human everyday. When we look around and take a breath, and we're sure of something beyond the reality before us. We reminding ourselves that we are loved. We're reminding ourselves that we belong. We reminding ourselves that in our true self, God is. We're reminding ourselves that the circumstance that we're facing in this moment is not the final word. We reminding ourselves not to constantly be all obsessed with shoulds, because that will drive us crazy, but instead to take the next step and knowing that God will be in that next step, just as God is right here, and that even if we go astray a bit, that we can always come home and redirect our path. And we know the good news is that we make the road by walking, as the great poet tells us, and so we decide to breathe deeply and live our life. Towards the end of the book, now an 80-year-old man encounters the answer man one last time. And he said he stopped asking, why me? Because he knew the answer. See, he didn't need the answer man anymore. He said, oh, why me? Because it's my life. And there's so many others around me who had it so much worse. So he chose, even through the most difficult moments of his life, the most anxious, to live fully into his life. And today I'm here to tell you that in the most difficult moment of your life, God is present, ready to be in kinship and solidarity within you. You sealed by that love. Can you root in your life today? And in the midst of your circumstance in this moment, no matter how painful, can you sense that you're not alone? You're not alone. You're companioned. It is there. Can you feel it in this moment? Right here, right now. This your life. Take a breath. The good news is that you have all the answers you're going to need for this moment. And for the future, do not be anxious. God will be with you then. And you'll have all you need then. Then too. Amen.